This is a Wild Age Production podcast. In 2009, a bunch of fans got together based on one man's idea, thinking that it would never reach the light of day. These fans then promptly started recording from their homes each week, bringing you the best of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition has to offer. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can call in or email, maybe they can answer your question. The Roll for Initiative podcast.
Hey folks, this is DM Vince here. We got another special insert coming your way. We dug deep inside the Blackstone's vault this week and we pulled out a review from Blackstone about Barrowmaze. Hope you enjoy.
Blackstone's vault.
Hello and welcome to everyone for a new edition of Blackstone's Vault. I am your host, Blackstone, and in this episode, I am going to cover a rather unique mega dungeon that is called Barrowmaze, and this version is Barrowmaze Complete. It was done by Greg Gillespie, and it's written for the Labyrinth Lord rules, but it can be easily modified for first edition AD&D. And this version was published in 2014, and you can get it in various different ways, either as a PDF or you could get it as a hardbound copy. Now, as I was saying, this was originally published as two separate supplements, Barrowmaze 1 and Barrowmaze 2, and in 2014 Greg here basically put the two together. I think maybe add a few things, some new artwork, particularly the cover of it is done by former TSR artist Errol Otis, and it is a beautifully put together book. I have the hardbound copy myself I got last year, and it is very well done indeed. And you can find this on drivethrurpg.com. And you can either get the zip file for $35. You could get the hardcover black and white book for $75. Or you could get both. They have a special deal going on right now for $85. But let's get on to the adventure itself. Now, this one's a rather unique setting. It's very, very small in its feeling as far as the setting is concerned. The location is in the Duchy of Eric, specifically in a village called Helix. The duchy itself is a very small hex map that you have inside the book, and there's various different parts of the duchy. There's the Barrowmoor itself, where the Barrowmaze is. There's the Old Dwarf Bridge, the Moon Peaks, the Moor Wash River, the Blackened Forest, the Thorns Wild Forest, and the Weird Wood, and a few other places. But it's just a real basic layout for, I guess you could call the wilderness portion of this adventure. You don't need a whole lot. You can plug and play this maybe into your own campaign if you want, or you could use it as is. Now, an important portion of this adventure, Barrowmaze, is the religions, the various different faiths that are associated with this area. And that comes into play later on because of how it involves the Barrowmaze. I'll get that in a little bit, but there's the different gods, like Hearn the Hunter. He's also known as the Horned God. He's the god of the swamps and forests. There's Sylvanus, god of nature. Crom, god of strength and battle. Saint Ig, god of righteousness. And Cantrell, I believe I'm pronouncing this right. This is the goddess of magic. And Perux is the god of decay, corruption, and pestilence. And then you have the last three, which are probably the most important, which falls into what's going on into the Barrowmaze. There's Set, god of serpents, death, and the underworld. There's Orcus, the god of the undead, death, and the underworld. And you see there's a little bit of commonality there. And then there's Nurgle, god of death, undead, and the underworld. What's going on is that there are three different factions within the Barrowmaze vying for control of the Barrowmaze, and they all follow these different gods: Set, Orcus, and Nurgle. Now, according to the mythology within this game world, Orcus and Set are brothers. They are the sons of Nurgle, who is presumed dead, but there are still followers of Nurgle. And Orcus and Set do not get along at all. So there's these three different factions of clerics and followers within the Barrowmaze vying for control of the Barrowmaze itself. Now, why are they trying to get control of the Barrowmaze? The reason being is, within the Barrowmaze lies a tablet called the Tablet of Chaos. It is an evil artifact, and it is said within the legends of this area that whoever wields the Tablet of Chaos can raise an army of the undead. Now, there are still some other settlements and towns in the area, some very minor areas that you can go to. One place called Bogtown, the other one called the Iron Gate, and then there's Helix itself. And the village of Helix is basically where your adventuring party that you have is going. This is the jump-off point of the whole adventure before you get into the Barrowmaze. Now, that being said, like most villages in some sort of campaign setting like this, if this is your jumping-off point, your base of operations, you have the different NPCs and different locations within the town, like for various some of the various locations. For example, you have the village square itself. You have a place called Turgan's Trades Goods, which is a trade store. You have a place called the Axe and the Anvil. That's the smithy. There's a mercenaries guild. There's also a shrine to Saint Ig, which is a good aligned god. There's a money lender. There's the Brazen Strumpet, which is the tavern in town. There's also a gambling house called the Foul Pheasant. The Wizard's Spire. So there's one wizard that lives here, and might as well get into some of the NPCs. His name is Mazaz the Magnificent. He's a bit of a eccentric magic user, if you will. And you have the mill, there's a Boyer Fletcher, and so on and so on. But you have different the different NPCs within here. Like there's Bolo, who's the owner and barkeep of the Brazen Strumpet. And there's some basic stats with him, and one paragraph about Bolo. A stout warrior in his youth, the barrel-chested Bolo retired from adventuring to open the Brazen Strumpet after he took an arrow to his knee. Bolo is an honest and fair-dealing man. He is a loud and ready laugh. He feeds Alistair, the village idiot, for free, praise the Hearn, and supports the local shrine, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of different NPCs in here. Some of these NPCs, as you could probably guess, are not exactly what, if you meet them, they're not exactly what they appear to be. But the biggest thing also, along with the NPCs, is trying to get the start of the campaign. There's a few adventure hooks that you could get them involved with, your adventuring party. And there's also a random rumors table. Going with like just one of the adventure hooks. Mazaz the Magnificent, an old local wizard in Helix, is looking to hire a party of adventurers to recover historical and arcane lore from the Barrowmaze. He's interested in learning more about the people who constructed the barrow mounds for research purposes. So that's one way you can get the adventures in. Another way is the rumors table, and it's laid out real simply. You basically can roll randomly, d20, and the various rumors are either true or false. Say, for example, a true one here is said that the twisted, mutated people live in Barrowmaze. That's a true one. A false one to the Barrowmaze is all the entrances to the Barrowmaze are trapped, and so on and so on. So that's the village of Helix and a little bit about the duchy that it's in. Now let's get into a little bit about the Barrowmaze itself. And the Barrowmaze itself is really unique in the fact that when Mr. Gillespie created this, it's basically all one level. It's all laid out in one level. There's no multiple level maps. It's all one level, and I think I probably said that enough to understand it, how it's laid out. But the interesting thing, because it's all one level, is all the different entrances that you can get to, all the different barrows that you can get access to get to various different areas of the Barrowmaze itself. Now, Mr. Gillespie did a really good job of giving some tips to the DM on running the Barrowmaze, like about random monsters, how to restock the dungeon, the barrel alcoves inside the Barrowmaze, dealing with bricked up walls, how they can be broken through, light, sight, and time within the Barrowmazes, stuck doors, partial collapses, and so on. One of the more important things is when a cleric tries to turn undead in the Barrowmaze, it's not necessarily very easy. There's a special table in here that the DM must reference if there is a cleric trying to turn any undead in this adventure. And let me tell you, it's very undead heavy. Now I'll go briefly in some of the new things that you can find in the Barrowmaze. This adventure is chock full of new magic items and some very minor ones. Just give little bonuses here and there. For example, you have these death masks that you can fight, and they're made of different metals. If you find the one that's made out of gold, if it's +2 to hit and +2 to damage to whoever wears it. The thing is, usually it's found on something it's found on like a skeleton or a zombie or something like that. So that skeleton or zombie is getting a +2 to hit and +2 to damage while it has this funeral mask on. You also have these different scarabs, like brooches, that you can find, and they have various magical abilities. You also have, kind of going into a Egyptian motif here, along with the scarabs, is canopic jars. If you're not familiar with canopic jars in the Egyptian mythology, canopic jars generally held the remains and organs of those who are buried. And these canopic jars, there's a breakdown of like what the jar contains and what the medical value is, the medicinal value. For example, if the jar contains the stomach, it can be used to create a neutralized poison potion. And that's just a few of the unique magic items that you can find in here. A few other magic items that you can find, along with the Tablet of Chaos, if you can find it. There's also the amulet, an amulet of magic resistance, armbands of healing. These are magical armbands which give an additional hit points per healing spell or potion received. You have what is known as the Aspergillum of Palantis. And this is a magical mace. It's +3 mace. And was wielded by the Paladin Palantis. And this is one of these unique magic items you can find within the Barrowmaze. And hopefully it can help you if you find the Tablet of Chaos to maybe destroy it. There's also oil of piercing, You can get a +1 bonus to normal weapons and a +1 to magical weapons for 6 rounds. Ring of free movement. Pig-faced bassinet. It's a magical helm usable by fighters, paladins, and rangers. It provides a +1 bonus to armor class and provides the wearer with the same benefits as a necklace of adaptation upon command. So, interesting, unique magic item there, and there's many, many more. More than I can list in this review. I guess going on with the idea of the magical items that you can find, there's new spells that you can find on scrolls or maybe in spell books in the Barrowmaze. There's one called Animate Statue. There's also one called Baltron's Effusive Blood Boil. Basically makes your blood boil and you take damage. There's also Continual Flame. And basically it produces a flame equivalent to a torch. There's also an Ool's Broiling Exhalation. This is a magic user spell. It's basically an enhanced version of Burning Hands. So, by means of this spell, a gout of searing magical flame issues forth from the caster's mouth. And basically you look like you're like breathing fire like a dragon, and you can hit a single target for about 4 points of damage. And one unique thing about this spell, it's very effective against undead. I guess it does an additional 3 hit points of damage to undead. So some more unique things along these spells that you can find, and there are many others. Now going into the Barrowmaze, like I said, there's various different factions that are involved with the Barrowmaze. Like the followers of Set, known as the Necromancers of Set, the Acolytes of Orcus. There's also Mongrel Men. There's Gargoyles. There's Griselda the Ghastly Gourmet. There's Voltrix and the Barrow Harpies. And there's also known as the Keeper of the Tablet. And the Keeper of the Tablet is very unique. I don't want to give it away. But there's various factions, again, that are within the Barrowmaze. Now, the Barrowmaze, getting into it, there's the various different mounds in this area that you can get into it. Some of these mounds are just self-contained burial mounds. Some of them have already been plundered. Some of them have not. So there are various examples of different mounds that have been either plundered, they're sealed, or they're empty. And there's the various mounds that they're sealed and the seals have been broken. There's basically a mini dungeon, maybe 3-4 rooms within this mound for the burial of that person. And you can find plenty of undead, as I've said, and maybe some other magic items and treasure. And just to give you an idea of basically how not I want to say how random it is, but how rich and full this area is, there's 70 mounds that your adventuring parties can go to, and they might not, and they probably won't know which one will lead into the Barrowmaze itself. Now, what about monsters in the Barrowmaze? Yes, there's actually plenty of new monsters near the back of the book. There's a Barrow Ghost. There's the Barrow Abomination, which is kind of what is described as a physical manifestation of Nurgle's chaos energy and the corruptive power of the Tablet of Chaos. Upon disturbing its rest, a Barrow Abomination will draw itself from piles of bones and skulls until it resembles a roughly humanoid shape, approximately 8 feet tall. So it's like a conglomeration of bones that are put together, and they will obviously attack you. There's one version of a pudding called the brown pudding. There's also a monster called Black Tentacles. And there's some that are actually not necessarily new, but they've been added. If you're familiar with AD&D, you also have the Cloaker, Coffer Corpse. There's also the Grell, if you remember that from Fiend Folio, but it's called something else. It's called the Serapod in here, because they don't want to have copyright infringement, if you understand what I'm saying. There's Death Knights, Crypt Knights. Yes, the Crypt thing is in here too. And various other monsters that are beyond the extent of this review. Suffice to say, for an adventure of this caliber, there's plenty of new monsters that will keep your adventurers on their toes. And this is a great thing. Most veteran players have seen the same sorts of monsters over and over again, and there's plenty of new ones in here that they just don't know about, and will keep them guessing on how to defeat them. Now that's pretty much the review of the Barrowmaze complete by Greg Gillespie. Now, far as I can tell, there's nothing terrible about this Mega Dungeon module at all. I love it all. It's so unique. It's a nice breath of fresh air, if I could say, onto the OSR forefront. And it kind of, but in a way, it kind of harkens back to when we were playing when we were younger, some of us, showing my age here. And it has that feel, that definite old school feel, and there's a sense of newness about it, and it really is very well put together. It's organized very well. The adventure itself will definitely keep your party on their toes. The only thing I could say that maybe is not so good is there is a lot of treasure in here as far as like coinage, but that could be easily rectified. And as I said, you can find this on Drive-Thru RPG, either as a PDF or a black and white bound copy with the wonderful cover by Errol Otis, or you can get both together. And that will be all for now. So hopefully you'll enjoy this review. I hope you go out and get it. I hope to run it very, very soon. So thank you all for listening, and may all your hits be crits.
The Roll for Initiative podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions. You can visit us at rfipodcast.com or contact us on our forums at osrgaming.org, or even call us at 570-865-4210. This podcast was produced for entertainment purposes only. All other uses are prohibited. Remember, if your magic missile spell doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on Roll for Initiative.